good afternoon slash evening slash morning, everyone. How you guys going?
Oh, good.
Uh,
Pretty
Thanks,
well.
Angad.
Yeah, how are
awesome.
you?
Yeah, really good. Really stoked to be having a chat with you guys. Should we start by introducing ourselves? Riz, would you like to take it?
Sure. My name is Hasan. I'm a I'm based in Brussels, Belgium. Very newly based here. Actually, used to be based in New York, not too far from William. We actually used to work together on the same team. My role here at Adaptavist is I'm a team lead for our consulting group in EMEA. It's in the European region and in the UK. So day to day for me is a lot of internal management, but also working with customers and my consultants on how our customers are scaling Agile and helping them with tool problems, process problems, people problems,
Wicked.
all the
That sounds
above. Yeah.
yeah, sounds awesome.
As for myself, William Rojas. I'm actually based out of a little suburban town called Trumbull in Connecticut, which is about an hour plus northeast of New York, basically. And as Riz mentioned, yeah, we've worked for a number of years. We worked together. We were running a agile transformation and scaling adoption team for Adaptavists. My new role now is actually I took on a pre-sales principal. I'm a pre-sales principal consultant these days. It's actually a new role within Adaptavist. And what we actually do is we have actually all of us, I think most of us are all like ex-consultants that support the pre-sales process and work kind of in between the sales team and the delivery team and all the other teams that support our clients at Adaptavist. So
Awesome,
that's
awesome.
so I help
Really cool.
define solutions for clients and make the proposals and support them through
I see.
get them onto
Yeah.
the delivery.
I'm Angad. I'm a software developer, and I'm working on easy agile programs and easy agile roadmaps to for products we offer for the Atlassian marketplace with Jira. Super excited to speak to you guys about um, how your teams are operating in, like, what's a day to day. Riz, would you like to answer that?
Sure. Yeah. So apart from like the internal management stuff, I mean, I think what's particular to this conversation is how we kind of walk clients through how to navigate planning at scale, right?
Yeah,
I'm working with a client right now who's kind of who's based in the states, but they're acquiring other software companies left and right, which
yeah,
I think is also kind of like a trend that's happening within this like the SaaS ecosystem.
yeah.
And when that happens, they're trying to bring all that work in together. So we're talking through ways of how to visualize all that in an easy
Okay,
way that isn't really too too much upfront uh, heavy with identifying requirements or understanding what systems we want to pull in, but more so what do you want to pull in.
okay,
So really right now in this phase of kind of the day that I'm working with this client, it's really just those initial conversations about what are you planning? Like, what are you doing and what's important to you? So it's a lot of these
okay.
conversations
Yeah.
about that.
And so you mentioned it's a lot of internal management. Are some of your clients fellow workmates, or are they external clients?
They're mostly, I mean, internal because I manage a team, so I have different people who are working on different types of projects where
I see.
they might be
I
doing
see.
cloud migrations, they might be doing some scripting work.
Yeah.
So I mean, in terms of services, we kind of cover everything within the Atlassian ecosystem, whether it be business related, process related, tool related.
Right.
So it's a big mix of stuff at all times.
Cool. And is it usually like you're speaking to all the team leads and giving them advice on, agile ceremonies and pushing work through pipelines and stuff?
Yeah, actually, so I mean, a kind of a story of like when I first moved to Brussels because so professional services started at Adaptavist in the UK, and this was maybe like 7, 8 years ago, and it's expanded. And myself and William were part of like the first group of consultants who were in North America, and that expanded really quickly. And now that we're in EMEA, it's almost like a different entity. It's a different way of working, and a lot of leadership has moved over to North America.
Yeah.
So there's new systems and processes and ceremonies and all that that's happening, but because of time zones, there's a conflict. So what I started to do when we got here was to reintroduce some of those habits and consistent conversations to have,
Yeah.
to really be much more on a better planning cadence. So
Yeah.
interacting with people who would be, say, bringing work to delivery in
Yeah.
pre-sale. So folks who work similar to William's capacity over here in this region, and then also
Awesome.
project managers who would be responsible for managing that work, right? So on the equivalent of like a scrum master on an engagement, or like an
Okay.
RTE on a big engagement, right?
Yep. Yep. That's awesome. And so, like, just one thing I really liked was your terminology. You used conversations over ceremonies, or speaks about the agile mindset in that sense, where you're not just pushing ceremonies on teams, where you actually embody being agile. Well, I'm assuming you are from your conversation, but I guess we'll unpack that. What about you, William? What's
One
your
of the things I was going to say, one of the things that's interesting challenge that we face on the because Adaptavist has an entire branch that does product development, and there are like product developers and product managers and product marketing and all sorts of things like that. Um, and they set plans and they focus, deliver, and so forth, as you would expect a normal product organization to do.
Yeah.
On the consulting side, one of the things that's very interesting is that a lot of our, like, we have to answer to two bosses, right? Like, our clients
Okay.
come in and say, hey, we need this, and we have to support them. In the meantime, we have a lot of internal projects, internal procedures and processes and things that we want to do as a company, as a practice, but at the
Yeah.
same time, we still need to answer to our clients. So that's actually one
I
of
see.
the interesting challenges that from an agile
Yeah.
perspective we're constantly facing, having to balance out between sometimes conflicting priorities,
Yeah.
and that is definitely something that as and all the consulting teams at different levels face
Yeah.
this challenge, right? So
Yeah.
as Riz
Yeah.
mentioned, we're constantly bringing in more work, and like, okay, like, we need you to now, adjust and replan to do something different.
Yeah.
The manager, yes, it's an ongoing problem. It's just
Yeah.
part of this world kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay. I see. And so if I heard that correctly, so it's I guess you're constantly recommending agile processes, but you may not necessarily get to practice it.
But more so, we're both practicing for ourselves as well as trying to tell our clients to practice it, or
I
trying
see.
to
Yep.
adjust. A
Yeah.
client comes in with needs. It's okay. Now we have to, replan or teach them how to do it, or re accommodate their new emerging priorities as well. So we ultimately end up having to practice agile with and for our clients as
Yep.
well as for ourselves. It's that constant rebalancing of having to weave in client needs
Yep.
into internal needs,
Yep.
and then the constant repriority that may come as a result of that.
Yep.
Uh,
Yep.
and then we're constantly looking for, like, how do we make this thing more efficient, more effective? How do
Yep.
we really be lean about how we do the work and so forth? That is
Yep.
definitely one thing that we practice. We try
There
to
you
practice
go.
that on a daily basis.
Yep. And
Yeah.
so I guess that's a very tricky space to be. Not a tricky space. It can be tricky, I guess. But I guess adding to the trickiness is remote work. Do you guys have a lot of clients who have transitioned to remote work, and has it made, um, I don't know, has it brought to light problems which can be a good thing, or like what's your experience been?
So that's interesting because so I've been doing consulting for over a couple decades,
Yeah.
and traditionally, so I've done a lot of that. Every that travel warrior. Every week you go travel to the client, you do your work, you travel back, and you do that again next week, and you do that month after month. Um, and coming to Adaptavist, Adaptavist has historically always been a remote consulting company.
Right.
So 5 years ago, it was like, wow, like we would go to clients and like, okay, we need you to do this. And we're like, yeah, we can deliver that. And no, we don't need to, we may come in and do a on-site visit to introduce ourselves, but we can deliver all this work remotely. So we've always had that
Right.
history.
Okay.
Uh, so but nonetheless, when COVID hit, and everybody went remote, we definitely experienced a whole new set of companies were now suddenly having to work remotely and having to establish new processes and practices that basically forced them to be remote.
Yeah.
And I think we've had the fortune of in a sense having always been
Yep.
um,
Remote
that
first.
space.
Yeah.
I know whenever we bring on people into the company, into consulting in particular, that's one of the things we always point out, like, remote work is not the same as being in the office.
Yeah.
It has its ups and downs.
Yeah.
But we've always had that benefit. And I think we've been able to assist some of our clients, like, this is how it's done, this is how we do it. So
Right.
we've been able to teach by example
But
type of thing to some
example,
of our
there you
clients over
go.
the years. Yeah, so.
Awesome. That was actually going to be my next question is what's the working structure at Adaptavist, and what sort of processes? I'm sure that it's a big company, and therefore there'd be um, tools and processes particular to teams in themselves. Just from your experiences, what are some of the processes or tools you guys are using?
So I mean, in terms of planning and kind of work management, right? Because we started off as a remote first kind of company, and
Yeah.
since COVID, business is good, right? I mean, I'll be
Yeah.
frank there. I mean, it's
Yeah.
been good for
Yeah.
us because we specialize in this market. We've had a huge hiring kind of spurt in all these different areas.
Yeah.
And one thing that I noticed internally, as well as problems that I wouldn't say problems, but a trend that we're seeing with a lot of other clients is that because of this remote push and the need for an enterprise to be able to give the teams the tools they need to do their work, there's a
Yeah.
lot more flexibility in what they can use, which has pros and cons, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Right. I mean, on the pro side, there's flexibility. The teams can kind of work the way they want. On the con side, administration might be difficult.
Yeah.
Alignment might be difficult.
Yeah.
So we're seeing, I mean, a lot of that with customers and ours. So we're
Yeah.
almost going on this journey with customers as we're scaling ourselves, right,
Yeah.
and learning how to navigate this new kind of reality of working
Yeah.
in a hybrid environment.
And I
That's
think in terms of some of the tooling and so forth that we get to do. So we obviously internally we have, we're pretty much an Atlassian stack. That is very much how we work every day. All our work is,
awesome.
is, is in
Yeah.
using Atlassian tools. All our work is tracked. All our client work is tracked in Jira. All our sales work, basically everything we do, we basically use Jira and Confluence. We're really big on Jira and Confluence. We have a lot of customizations we've done to our instances over the years, things that we just have developed. But I think so that's internal. I think the other aspect is, like, often depending on the client that comes to us and the type of work that we're doing for that client, then the types of tools that we use can pretty much run the full gamut, right? We have a lot of Atlassian, so we do a lot of work in Jira with our clients. I work in Confluence. Sometimes we're working on helping them scale, so we bring on some of the add-on to support some of the scaling practices within to support Jira. We'll do a lot of JSM work. We do often DevOps work, and then we'll bring on a lot of the DevOps tool sets that you would expect to find, so things to
Yeah.
support delivery pipelines. So it
Yeah.
really depends quite a bit on the client. We even do some like agile transformation work, and in there we do some pretty kind of a lot of custom build things that practices and so forth. And we bring in surveys and tools that we've been able to develop over the years to
Yeah.
support that particular need. So a lot of the tools often are dictated by what the client and the specific engagement call for.
In my personal experience recently with COVID. I find myself in a lot of meetings. We are experimenting with async decision making. Have you experimented with async decision making processes yet?
I'll start by saying like I hate meetings. I think most meetings are a waste of time, and I
Awesome.
tell my
Yep.
team this. I'm like, if we don't need to meet, like we're not going to
Yeah.
meet.
Awesome.
And I think that really comes, yeah, awesome for sure, awesome.
I love it. I love it.
But it comes down to really is when you do meet, are you having the right conversation, right?
Right.
And do
Yeah.
you? And I think a key component of being in like an agile team, quote unquote, is you have an understanding of what you're supposed to be, what we all are doing collectively, and what the priorities are, right?
Yeah.
Which is tough
Yeah.
to actually get. So when we talk about like asynchronous kind of decision making, right,
Yeah.
with a team that has some degree of understanding of what priorities are, what goals are, right, it gets easier, right, and you can have more low impact kind of interactions with
Yeah.
people. So we
Yeah.
use Slack a lot,
Yeah.
and we have a lot of like internal bots on
Yeah.
our Slack to be able to
Okay.
present information and collect feedback at asynchronous times, right? Because
Yep.
there's voting features, there's places where you can comment, right?
Okay.
And I think when we talk about teams that are growing across the globe, and also time zones and flexible working, because that's a real thing now, right?
Yeah.
There's like a practical kind of way of how to do that we're starting to dig into. Like, what does that look like?
Do you find yourself in a million Slack groups?
Yeah.
Yep, you do. Any do you see any like I guess hurdles you've got to extra hurdles you've got to skip because of that? Because you maybe like, do you find yourself hopping from conversation to conversation? Um, Whereas it would just be easier if everyone was in the same conversation. Does that happen
Yeah.
a bit?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. All the
I hear
time.
you. Yeah, there you go. Okay, cool.
So, but I would say we have a lot of like impromptu, like so we often have I think we do have a lot of impromptu meetings, and
Okay,
sometimes we may be in a Slack typing away. It says, you know what,
and just
Slash
jump in
Zoom,
a
and then let's
huddle.
jump into Zoom and
Yeah,
then let's chat
yeah,
or Slack conversation and then just
yeah,
face-to-face conversation and then
yeah,
just address it then and there.
yeah,
But I think we have been looking at it's almost like I think a balance between the time spent on the meeting and the amount of people that need to be in the meeting and the benefit and value that comes out of that meeting, and a daily meeting where work was people would pick up work report from a sales perspective,
yeah,
and it was very much like necessary as part of our the work coming into the consulting pipeline, but it was very it felt like very inefficient. So that's like one of the means. For example, we did away with, and it's now a completely asynchronous process where by which work comes in and it gets allocated, people pick it up, people support it, we deliver things, we track where things are and so forth, and we now use all of that is basically all done through Slack. So we did away with all the meetings around hey, who can help with this, right? But meantime, we have another meeting where we're trying to, kind of get people on projects, and that is very much we need to kind
yeah,
of negotiate on that often. So that's
yeah,
a meeting that's still very much done.
yeah,
Uh, Everybody comes in, we all talk, we decide what needs to get done.
yeah,
People, balance back and forth. So that trade-off, I think, is really important to really understand what there are meetings that are necessary,
yeah,
very valuable, and they should remain. And there's ones that
yeah,
really a Slack is a much better mechanism to be able
yeah.
to
Very
make
true.
those kind of decisions.
Yeah. And does it, well, sorry, firstly, pardon the location change. I'm sitting right next to the router now, so hopefully, hopefully the Wi-Fi holds. What sort of a scale are we speaking about here in your Slack? Is it, the reason I ask is, with larger organizations, it can be harder to scale. Um, Therefore, I'm just trying to get a gauge of what scale your Slack is at.
we just hit we're just over the 500 mark. I mean, in
Right.
terms of employees,
Yep.
with basically our general, which seems to be, I think, I don't want to say universal, but the standard across any organization that has Slack, general is the best indicator of how many people you have
Yep.
logged on, right? So
Mhm.
we're just about the 500 mark, which I would say is probably around mid-size.
Yep.
But it's definitely getting to the point where we're starting to see it's almost a little bit too much in order to disseminate information, find the right information, etc. Um, and we're actually partners with Slack also,
Okay.
so we work with them pretty
That's super
closely on
convenient.
some opportunities. Yeah, exactly. And
That's awesome.
we're starting to talk with customers also about kind of the same problem about how much is
Yep.
too much and when do you start to form communities around people that are delivering the same type of value, so those
Yep.
conversations are more aligned and there's not just a whole lot of chatter and people get confused like when they read Slack and like, oh, is this the priority now,
Yep.
or am I supposed to be doing this or change in process? So that
Yep.
communication is harder now. I think
Yep.
really, really, and this is where a lot of folks I think who are moving to this remote environment are
Yep.
struggling with is that alignment and
Yeah.
communication.
Very
But
true.
and it is, I would say, fairly organic how
Yeah.
the like our channel proliferation. We do have. I would think even for a company our size, we're pretty loose about how channels get proliferated, who gets to create them, what they're for, and so forth. But then it gives you the flexibility of based upon your interests or the context of what you need to communicate on, then you can either join a channel that supports it or create a channel if necessary to support it. So it is in that sense pretty organic.
Yep.
But it is true that there are hundreds, if not thousands, of Slack channels that we have,
Yeah.
and so kind of staying like which one should you be on is definitely one of our big
Yeah.
challenges now,
Yeah.
for sure.
Well, that just
Yeah.
blows my mind just because like 500 people on a Slack.
Uh-huh.
Our whole company is 35 people, and I
Yeah.
and I'm pulling my hair out
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
um being in too many Slack. So well, yeah, that blows my
But it
mind. But
allows us, for example, it does allow us, for example, to have like client specific
yeah.
Slack channels. So anybody, if you need to talk on, if you're working on a particular account, you're working for a
Yep.
client,
Yep.
then there's a channel for that. And if you're working on another client, there's another channel. The thing I find helpful about it is that it gives you that context of if I want to communicate with so and so, if I want to communicate with Riz
Yep.
on a particular account, I
Yep.
will go to the account channel. If I want to talk to Riz one on one, I go to a one on one chat. So
I see.
we
Yep.
do have that
The
benefit of
flexibility.
where to put the information.
Yep.
But it does mean that I have, probably over 100 channels
Yeah.
in my roster of things that I follow,
Yep.
and I'm always behind.
Yeah.
I'm always
Well,
behind. So
that's
that the next
yeah.
level of it is then you begin to prioritize which channels should I really be notified about and which ones are
Yeah.
most important. I want to track those and I try to keep that list to a minimum in terms of unread messages and there's stuff that
Yeah.
I try to get to and I'm
Yeah.
bored and I have nothing else to do.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, but
I've
it's
been
still very
leaving a lot of
helpful.
channels too. I've just been
Yeah.
just really cutting the cord with some channels where,
Yeah.
I had some motivation to really like, help out here, but I just can't. And it's just too much noise.
Yeah.
And you just got to
Yeah.
cut the cord and be like, if it's empty, if there's no conversation happening, or if it's slow, then move
Yeah.
on.
Yep. And
And we also have we let you can get added back in. So sometimes you leave
yeah.
and then somebody will put you back in. So I need you to
Yeah.
talk about this. So but it
Yeah,
is pretty organic. I know we do leave it
Yeah.
up to
Yeah.
individuals to decide how
Yep.
best to manage that.
yeah.
That's awesome.
We had
Um.
a instance today actually where there was an old. It was basically a sales opportunity. A customer who had kind of reached out to us for a certain ask, and we hadn't heard from them for months, right? Like 8, 9 months. And someone who I'm pretty close with on our sales team posted, "Hey, this is kicking back up again, but I don't have the capacity." And I just left immediately as I saw that message. I was like, "I can't help out with this. Sorry."
Oh, yeah. The old so and so has left the group is a bit of a stab in the heart, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
we'll get over it. Um.
Yeah.
yeah,
Just coming back to a point you mentioned, Riz. You said you used the words alignment and communication. Um, Both of you, when consulting with clients, is that are those the two sort of main themes you guys like to base your recommendations around?
I'll give you a very consulting answer and say it depends.
Mm, yeah, yeah,
But I mean, when we engage with a customer, one of the toughest part of our job is understanding if there is even alignment in the group of people that we're talking to as
right.
well. Because
Yeah,
at the scale of projects that sometimes we work with, we have like 20 to 25 people on a call,
yeah,
and of all of those people, they may have different motivations or objectives of what they're wanting with their engagement with us, right?
yeah,
So I would say that's primarily what we go into, um, what's driving what we're trying to find out, what we're trying to do with them is get some alignment between the group and
yeah,
ourselves.
yeah,
And communicating that is, not always easy,
yeah,
right?
And
But
I would
yeah.
say, adding on to what Riz, that also depends quite a bit on the specific engagement with that client. So in particular, if the engagement, because if an engagement is like, get me onto the cloud, okay, come in,
yeah,
often there's much better alignment for something like that.
yeah.
If the engagements are more about, hey, help us help us scale agile, help us get better at how
At
we
being agile.
deliver
Yeah,
that, then the need for alignment, the need to make sure that we're all communicating correctly, we all understand,
yeah,
we all come to the meeting with the same objectives and so forth is so much more critical, right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
so in those kind of engagements, we're constantly realigning, right? Because it's
okay,
not even
yeah,
like we had the alignment. It's like, yeah, okay, we have it next week. It's gone. We got to go back and we get get it again, right? So
yeah,
that making sure that everybody's marching towards the same set of objectives, defining what those objectives are, letting them evolve as appropriate, so forth. All that becomes so much more critical.
yeah,
And that's where the tools like that's where things like Jira and again, like how do we scale, how do we show what everybody's doing and so forth, that's where it becomes so that much more important, right? And in those kind of engagements, we definitely like those the tooling becomes essential. Not that the tooling is going to answer it, but the tooling becomes the way by which it helps us communicate, yeah, this is what we all agree we're going to do. Okay, the tool says so because that's the decision we've made.
yeah,
It's really interesting that you say cloud
Uh-huh.
migrations, right? William, like when you say, okay, I'm moving to the cloud, we know what the alignment is. But even then, I mean, I'm
Yeah.
finding is that, especially within the Atlassian ecosystem, but because that's what we're exposed to all the time. But when we're moving data from a new, completely, old infrastructure to something brand new, it's not going to be the same, right? And you have folks who are thinking that, oh, we're just going to be taking all this stuff from here and putting it over there. But what usually doesn't come along with it is that you're going to have to also change the way you work slightly, right? There's going to be changes that you're not accounting for.
you need
And
to
that's
see,
where
yeah,
the alignment conversation really is important because we work with small companies who understand, okay, moving to the cloud will be completely different. We also work with legacy organizations like financial institutions that have a lot of red tape and process and security concerns, and kind of getting that alignment and understanding with them first of what this means, right, to
yeah,
move to a completely different way of working
Yeah.
yeah,
is also part of that conversation. So, I mean, it's a constant push and pull
yeah, yeah.
with that.
That's yeah. It's really heartwarming to hear the two of you deal with the JCMA, which is the Jira Cloud Migration Assistant
Quite a
work.
bit, yeah.
Um, that's awesome because yeah, that's something we're working on currently as well. So I'll end with a super hard question, and I'll challenge you guys to not use the word depends in there. And and the question is uh, the number one piece of advice for remote teams practicing agile. Let's start with you, Riz.
get to know each other, right?
Yeah.
Keep it
Okay.
keep it personal, right? I mean, I think one of the hardest things about this new reality is
Yeah.
making that connection with someone, and when you have that, that builds trust, and when you have trust, everything's a lot easier, right?
Yeah.
So I'd say that, right? I mean, people really aren't um, the enemy, right? I mean,
Yeah.
maybe that's not the right word, right? But
Yeah.
work shouldn't be a conflict, right? I mean, it should be kind of more of like a negotiation, right? And
Yeah.
if you trust each other, it's a lot easier to do that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's awesome. That's
It really is.
I'm gonna definitely take that back with me.
Yeah, and just if I could quickly add to that, so like that's like so like looking for ways to how to replace like the standing around by the having a cup of coffee. How do you
Yeah.
replace that in a remote setting?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you still have that personal interaction um, that maybe there's an electronic medium in between, but it's still sort of that personal setting. I think that's one of the things that you're looking for because yeah,
Yeah.
it is very much about trust. And I think to that, I would also add back to the alignment, right? Because in some ways that helps build that strong interaction helps build and maintain the alignment. Because often it's not so much that you get alignment, is that you stay aligned, right? So it is this constant and having those interactions, having that trust and so forth, is what, in a sense, allows us to stay aligned, right? Because we know each
Yeah.
other, we know how to help each other, we support each other,
Yeah.
so we stay in alignment. So the trust and so forth are a good way to help build and maintain the alignment itself that you're looking for. 'Cause
Yeah.
that's actually in remote world, you don't have the benefit of seeing each other, the whiteboard, all those things are not
Very
the
true.
same. So you
Getting cup
need,
of coffee. Yep.
but we still need to stay in sync with what needs to get done, right? That's so important.
Very true. And so,
Yeah.
um, would you guys want to drop any names of tools you're using to facilitate that trust between team members in a remote setting?
So I would say, so like I mentioned, like from my role, one of the things that we do is we support in the pre-sales area, we support some of our larger accounts, and almost as a more of like a solution account manager per se, right? So we
Yeah.
come in and help make sure that the client is getting the solution that is meant to be delivered. So we work with the delivery teams, we work with the client, kind of sit in between. There's one client, one large client that we've been working on for years now, and we basically, to the point that they're moving towards some flavor of safe. That I wouldn't call it fully safe, but they do have a lot of safe practices. But they do PI planning, and
Yeah.
and so we come in and join the PI planning, and that's actually one of the like I said, like how do you stay aligned, right?
That's
Like
so cool. Yeah.
you
You
pull
witness it.
up you
Yeah.
pull up your program definition, you look at what features you want to deliver in the PI, who's going to deliver that feature in the PI,
Yeah.
and then in your readout, go back to the tool and say, look, this is what we've agreed to.
Yeah.
Others can ask questions and so forth, and constantly going back to just for example, just last week we're doing now sprint planning and say, actually, okay, this feature is going to drag on another sprint. Let me go back and readjust in the this client is using the Easy Agile programs. The original plan of saying this
Yeah.
feature is now going to be not 2 sprints but 3 sprints instead, for example.
Yeah.
So that habit of getting into using the tool to communicate what we decided and what we
Yeah.
just had to make changes to. Right? So it becomes this communication vehicle. It's
Yeah.
really important. So yeah, they use programs. They use the roadmap piece of programs
Yeah.
to help them do their PI planning and stay in sync with what it is that ultimately gets communicated out at the end of the PI and then during the sprints of the PI itself. And it's been very helpful for them.
Yeah.
Again, I think they have the 7 trains, and they all use that to help stay in
Yeah.
sync, stay aligned.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
One other quick thing I'll say is I think uh, there's definitely been some. There will be some of where we've gone will now become status quo, become permanent. So I think that this has been a shift
Yeah.
across the market, across the industry, across company, how people work. So the
Yeah.
idea of remote work, the idea
Yeah.
of using tooling to really establish communication and help facilitate communication, all that. While it's been around, I think the big difference is like now everybody, like, you have no choice, right?
Yeah.
Everybody has to do it,
Has to. Yeah.
and I think we've definitely seen a big, like, a shift in across the entire industry because of that.
Yeah.
And
Awesome.
that will now solidify, and let's see what the next level brings. But I
Yeah.
definitely think that we've kind of reached a new stage of maturity and so forth,
Yeah.
pretty much globally, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is. Thank you, guys. I won't keep you too long. I think it has the sunset there, Riz? I can see the reflection
Yeah.
going dark.
It is getting there. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I won't hold you guys for too long.
All good.
But thank you so much for the conversation. I took a lot away from that. Um, and yeah, I hope I can add you guys to my LinkedIn. I would love to be in touch still, and
Definitely.
Yeah, sure.
um, yeah, and yeah, trying to establish a point of contact, not to add to one of your Slack channels. Um, but yeah, just so that we can be in conversation regarding the product and improving it.
Yeah, yeah, sure. We have a partner kind of management channel. I know we've been talking to Haley a little bit, so
Awesome.
she was
Yeah,
reaching out to us about some other stuff. So, yeah, I
beautiful.
mean, happy to. We engage with your product, and
Yeah,
it's in our white papers too. We're going to put out another white paper this year where we're
awesome,
going to talk about Easy Agile
awesome.
too. So, yeah, we'll stay in touch.
Cool. Um,
I gave you, so my
sweet.
LinkedIn is on a different my LinkedIn is not with my work email, because that
Yep,
way I can keep the same account place to place.
sounds
But yeah,
good.
so you can look me
Beautiful.
up on LinkedIn with that.
Wicked. Awesome. Thanks,
Awesome.
guys.
All
Have a
right.
good day.